Welcome back to another question and answer session here at Silicon Dojo. So basically what these sessions are is people leave a question in the comment section. I go through every day, try to find a pretty good question to answer, and then I sit here and I talk to you folks about what the question is, why the question is important, and what my thoughts on that question happen to be. Now the question for the day is, how the hell am I going to get rid of all this packing material? This is the real world of business, boys and girls. So one of the followers out there decided to send me a refrigerator. Again, I'm a little cautious with saying a thank you for getting the refrigerator, because as soon as I say thank you, I'm not really sure what else is going to show up on my doorstep. Like, this literally showed up on my doorstep. To be clear, I did not get an Amazon gift card that I decided to use to buy a refrigerator. I just walked up to the office door one day and there was a big old box with a refrigerator in it. Anyways, somebody gave me this pretty nice refrigerator. Finally have it plugged in. This should be good for the meetup tonight. But unfortunately for me, I also have all of this packing material that the refrigerator came in, and I'm not sure how to get rid of this packing material because this office doesn't actually have a trash room. When I rented this office, I just assumed, to assume makes an ass of both you and me, I assumed that there was a trash room. There is not a trash room. There's like one trash can in the bathroom, and everybody's supposed to throw their trash in there. Not really sure how that all's supposed to work out. So anyways, we have a refrigerator now. Yay! The dojo has a refrigerator, and I have to figure out what to do with all this trash. Again, I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't understand when they say they want ownership. I want ownership! Great, figure out what the hell to do with this. Nobody ever thinks about what do you do with the packing material. Anyways, when people say they want ownership, what they want is they want profit. They want respect. They want say in the decisions that they think are fun and interesting. They don't want to have to fire Carlos or figure out what to do with the trash. Anyways, that's my question that I have to figure out. What to do with the packing material? Anyway, so this question today, the real question today, comes from HW again. Eli, you spoke about the concept of addressable market and how you're not sure if Asheville is large enough for Silicon Dojo. If Asheville has a population of about 100,000, can't you get a sense if you'll have enough customers? How can you expand the addressable market if you need to? So I did a video a while ago on the main channel that has now disappeared. I cleaned up the main channel. Again, the conversation culture. It's not cancel culture, it's not consequences culture, it's conversation culture. Anyways, I cleaned up a lot of my old videos just because, they had some opinions in them. I stand behind those opinions. I just don't want to have a conversation about those opinions. Anyways, in one of those particular videos, I was talking about the addressable market. And the whole question that you should have is basically how large is your actual addressable market? So when you start to do a business somewhere, basically when we talk about the addressable market, the whole question is how many people can you theoretically actually sell to? Right? So you'll see this on Shark Tank or a lot of these places where they have wannabe entrepreneurs on there, and they'll come out with some product and they'll say, if everybody in the world bought one of these products, it would be worth $1 gazillion. But the big issue, though, is they can't actually address that entire market space, right? Even if everybody in the world did want that particular widget, the whole question is who can you actually sell to? Who can you actually deliver to? Who is within the regulatory scheme, again, that you're actually able to do transactions and such with? So again, I'm an American. No matter how cool my product is, I can't sell it to an Iranian, right? That's just law. So like if you look at the addressable market, there's the idea that there's everybody in the world that may want this thing, but then you can't sell to Iran, and you can't sell to Egypt, and you can't, or it's not to Egypt, to North Korea, and you can't sell to a couple of other places. And there's other places where there's a language barrier, so you can't sell to them. And some places are too far to ship product to, so you can't sell to them. And all of a sudden you figure out your actual addressable market, the actual number of people that you can sell to, is much smaller than you may realize. Conversely, you may find out that your addressable market is much larger than you realized. I talked about this when I ran my computer repair shop in Baltimore, where because at the time we did Mac repair and we did like Mac data recovery, Not what Lewis does. Now we're clear, not what Lewis does. But again, you go back 12, 13, 14 years ago, we were actually doing repair works on Macs and data recovery on Macs. We had people, so Baltimore, right? We had people coming from Northern Virginia, what's called the Eastern Shore, and Northern Virginia to get to us. We had people driving 2 hours one way to drop off their computer. And so one of the things that I realized was our addressable market was actually a hell of a lot larger than we realized. Louis Rossman is going through this right now, where his addressable market is much bigger than he realized. With COVID and everything that's happened, he started getting more and more mail-in work, and now I think he says like 60 or 70% of the work coming in is mail-in. So he has a store in New York City, and so you have the walk-by traffic there, and so you think about, okay, New York City and 10 million people, blah, blah, blah. You think about what that addressable market is, and then what he realizes is he actually has a national addressable market. He can get computers shipped in from California, he can get computers shipped in from Michigan and all those other places for him to be able to repair. So his addressable market is much larger than he first realized. So one of the questions that I'm running into here with trying to do Silicon Dojo in Asheville is I am questioning. I have a lot of questions about how big the addressable market is going to be here in Asheville. So the important thing to understand is I did not move to Asheville as a business decision. First thing to understand, this was not a business decision. This was a lifestyle decision. This was a beer decision. This was hiking up the mountains and having neighbors that I actually like decision. So moving here was not actually a business decision. It's just we moved here and I'm creating a business. So therefore I'm here, right? And so one of the big questions I have is essentially how large is the addressable market here in Asheville? And I'm a bit concerned, honestly, genuinely concerned, within Asheville proper and the environs, the addressable market here, rather locally, it may be much smaller than I first realized, right? Because again, coming from the Baltimore area has 1.5 to 2 million people in the entire metropolitan area. So you have a lot of people around, and plus you have a lot of technology companies there. You have if you look at Columbia, if you look at Hunt Valley, obviously around Washington, D.C., obviously around Northern Virginia, you have a lot of technology companies there. And so a lot of people want to learn technology because they know they can get a job. If I know C#, I can get a job. That is a hell of a motivator, boys and girls. You want a real motivator? Paying your mortgage, best motivator I've ever come across. Anyway, so selling education there was going to be a pretty simple thing. Coming here to Asheville, though, I'm kind of wondering exactly how big the addressable market within Asheville itself is, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of desire for technology education. Now, people want tech jobs. Again, people want the pay of tech jobs. People want the respect of pay of tech jobs. You know, the politicians want tech companies to come in and improve the the renown or whatever of the town. But that doesn't necessarily mean people that actually want to do the work. And so I've talked about this a little bit where I'm concerned, because I've started doing more of these technical type classes. So last week I did easy computer vision with Azure. Azure is really awesome with their serverless architecture. There's something called cognitive services, and with I don't know what it was, 20 lines of code, which you can really copy pasta the crap out of, and understanding a little bit about how servers and networking functions, you can actually be doing computer vision like within an hour. Within an hour, I went from setting up my Microsoft Azure account to literally getting the JSON outputs back to me, or the responses back to me. It was really cool, but I did that, and I thought that would go well, right? Computer vision! Everybody wants to know about technology! I have like 50 members of my Meetup group, and one person showed up. This week we're doing Twilio. So again, one of the main focuses for Silicon Dojo is the concept of IoT, Internet of Things. One of the things that I want to explain to people is when you talk about the Internet of Things, you don't necessarily have to be using the IPv4 protocol. You can be using other communication protocols. And so Twilio is really cool because you can actually have your device using an API communicate with Twilio to send out an SMS message to whoever you want it to be sent out to. And then that person who receives the SMS message can actually send commands back to a server using SMS. Those commands can get parsed, and then your little IoT device can be triggered based off of whatever it said. So let's say you have a little temperature device. You have a device that measures the temperature in a room, and you also have it connected to a relay relay to a fan, right? So it's able to read what the temperature is in the room, and if you are able to send it a command, it's able to turn on a fan. So imagine this, it's constantly, reading what the temperature is. If the temperature goes above 80 degrees, it'll automatically trigger to communicate with the Twilio API. The Twilio API will then send out an SMS notification to whoever's supposed to receive it. The person on the other side can say, oh my God, the room is 85 degrees, and they could simply send back a simple command of on, O-N. That goes back, Twilio sends it to your server dumps it into a file so that your little Raspberry Pi can read it, your little Raspberry Pi reads that the command is supposed to be on, and then it turns the fan on. Right, that's some cool stuff right there. That's some modern technology. We ain't talking about bezels around here. We're talking about, oh my golly, what's it, multimodal communication networking or whatever else. And I have two people. I have two people showing up for that tonight. Free to the end user education for these folks. Oh well, at least people are watching the videos afterwards. So anyways, one of my questions here is basically what is the actual addressable market in the local area for doing couple-hour seminars on what I would consider are significant technology topics. And after having actually been running this now, we've been doing this for about 2 months, I have a large question about whether or not people in the area actually want to learn that much about technology. Right? And again, that's one thing to be thinking about with addressable market. People talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Everybody needs to learn technology. Everybody wants to learn technology. If you teach technology, people will just flood to your door. Right? That's what people that aren't actually doing anything say. The problem is, when you actually go out there to do whatever it is that you're going to do, what you might find out is that the reality is what you're trying to accomplish, people don't actually want. Again, there's this weird thing, again, virtue signaling. One of the issues I have in the modern world is there's these very good words that people kind of keep discounting and dismissing because the wrong side of the political spectrum says it. But the word itself is actually a valuable thing to keep in mind. And one of the big problems we have in our modern society is this concept of virtue signaling. And again, I'm not talking about the SJWs or the snowflakes or any of that kind of crap. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there, right? They want to say the right thing. They want to be seen as to be on the right side of the conversation. And so what we've heard so much, the things that are going on in our societies, there's this idea that technology is eating the world, software is eating the world as the concept. There's this idea that all the kids want to learn technology, right? There's all of this stuff out there, and so you have a lot of folks out there that virtue signal. They don't know anything about the technology industry. They have never coded anything in their lives. They couldn't do an if-else, function if their life depended on it. But they've heard technology is the future. They've heard kids and all of these people want to learn about technology. Therefore, they will be very vociferous with saying, if you create a technology education facility, I'm sure you will be successful, right? They are virtue signaling about what they have no idea about. And this is the number one destructive thing for businesses. Again, when I talk about virtue signaling and some of the millennials and some of this other stuff, remember, I'm not trying to get into the whole political discourse on this crap. I'm trying to talk about this from a business person, and I will tell you, the number one destroyer of many small businesses is listening to virtue signalers, listening to people who have no idea what the hell they're talking about. There is no reason that they should think that they know what the hell they're talking about, but they will thump their chest and they'll be like, I know. Yeah, here's the thing. A lot of kids want to learn about bezels. Again, why I get irritated with Linus and Marquez Brownlee and the rest of these is not because they're successful, more successful on YouTube or anything else. My frustration is there's a lot of kids out there that think about screaming about bezel sizes as actually being in the technology world. It's not. I don't give a damn about what the bezel size is. It's the bezel size. Alright? Anyways. So one of the questions that I have here in the Asheville area is basically how many people actually want to really learn technology, want to learn higher level concepts in technology. And so this then becomes a real business issue, right? If I can get 10, 20, 30 people in the door for a meetup, I can figure out how to monetize that relatively easily. If I'm getting 2 people through the door, oh my God, these seminars take a little bit of work to set up. It becomes an entirely different equation. So then one of the things that I have to be thinking about is how can I adjust my business in order to change what the addressable market actually is, right? So again, that's an important thing to think about with Silicon Dojo. Basically what I've decided is I like dealing with real human beings. I don't like dealing with the internet world. I mean, I'm doing this because it's useful and it pays me more than a couple of dollars, but internet drives me insane. I don't know about you. It drives me insane. So I want to deal with people. I want to educate people in the real world. I want to teach people in the real world. I want to see the people's eyes light up as they make an LED blink or whatever else. But the important thing to understand is when I'm talking about this, I want to do hands-on technology education that's hopefully free to the end user. Now you'll notice when I say that, that's actually a pretty damn limited definition. I'm not saying I'm teaching people to be CompTIA certified. I'm not saying I'm teaching people to be, Python ninjas or rock stars or anything else. I'm not saying that I'm going to teach, IaaS for AWS or things like that. I'm simply saying I want free to the end user, hands-on technology education in Asheville. And so the interesting thing about that is that actually leaves me pretty wide open to do a hell of a lot of pivoting within this particular niche in order to figure out how I can make my addressable market larger. All right, so I think about this with the people that have been willing to come and meet me. So I've had lots of people that have actually come here and they meet me. I do these one-on-one consulting sessions or whatever with people. I talk about their careers. I talk about what they're trying to do with their businesses, all these types of things. And I have people that come from pretty large area. I've had numerous people come from Charlotte, so Charlotte is at least 2 hours away. I've had somebody come from Raleigh, which is 3.5, 4 hours away. I've had somebody come from Augusta, Georgia, which again is 3 hours away. Again, when I talk about it, this is one way. One way. I had somebody come 3 hours one way, spend 3.5 hours with me, and then drive home that night. And so one of the things that I'm sitting there thinking about is when I start thinking about the addressable market, one of the questions is, if you're going to try to make your addressable market larger, if you're going to try to make the geographic area for your market larger, what can you sell that would actually bring people in from a larger area, right? So if I am doing hour, 2 hour, presentations a few times a week, people are probably not going to drive 6 hours for a 2 hour presentation. It's nothing about how good or bad that 2 hour presentation is, but 6 hours of driving for a 2 hour class, unless you're teaching something really freaking amazing, probably not going to have a lot of people show up. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about is once we get a bigger space, so I'm in the process of actually trying to get a space that's 2 to 3 times bigger than this, then what I want to do is on the weekends, or what I'm at least thinking about doing is on the weekends or maybe some other days, start doing full day classes, right? Having somebody drive 6 hours for a 2 hour class probably won't work out, but what if we did an 8 hour class? What if we had a relatively high quality introduction to cybersecurity? Again, still free to the end user, hands-on technology education. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an 8 hour class today, and we are going to go through all of the basics of cybersecurity. So for a small environment, you should be able to understand how cybersecurity should work. We'll sit there, we'll play around with some different devices or some different codes or tools or whatever, so that you understand how these things are supposed to operate. And then at the end of it, we give you a piece of paper. Again, one of the things I've talked about before, in my plans for Silicon Dojo is I did not want to give people pieces of paper. I was like, hell no. Hell no, I will not give you a piece of paper. No. Yeah, well, you know what? If people really want a piece of paper, who am I to tell them they shouldn't have a piece of paper? It's like, okay, I can stand on my high horse, and I cannot give you a 50-cent piece of paper, and then you cannot come and attend the training. Or I can zip through a 50-cent piece of paper through my laser printer, and you can come to the training. Is my high horse really worth that 50-cent piece of paper? Probably not, right? And so that's one of the things that I'm thinking about is a way to enlarge the addressable market that I can go after is if I start doing these 1 or possibly 2-day like seminars, maybe hands-on, but hands-on seminar, whatever, with a piece of paper at the end. That is something where I think I can actually attract people from a rather large area. Again, if I go out and I talk with business owners, I talk with organizations, I figure out what they're actually interested in, and essentially it's like, here is a day or here is a 2-day training of what employers actually want. And you get a certificate at the end of it, right? And so that's one way to try to increase the geographic addressable area, right? It's simply by modifying a bit what the product is. Also, I was talking with somebody yesterday who actually wants to help support Silicon Dojo, and they have kids, right? And so one of the frustrations, but the reality is parents many times will not invest a dime in themselves. They will not invest an hour in themselves, nor will they invest a dime in themselves, right? That when they get home, when they get done with work at the end of the day, they want to go home and have a beer and scream at their kids to do their homework. The kids are the future. Again, this is one of the reasons why most people dislike me, because I'm like, hey, you know, again, I'm 44. I'm 44 right now. I'm probably about halfway through my life, so I've got a lot of life to keep doing. So I think that I should improve myself because I'm going to be here for decades and decades and decades. The idea that I am going to stop improving myself because I'm in my 40s seems rather what I call idiotic. But unfortunately, a lot of adults out there, there's like this weird thing that happens in their head. Like basically, as soon as they graduate college, they're done. Self-improvement is over. Like, that's not really how it works in the modern world. Not even really sure that worked that well, 50 years ago. But anyways, you have a lot of folks out there, right? They get into a job, they get into their career track, even if they're in a rut. They're in a rut for a company that they hate, doing things that they don't care about, but the thought that they are going to improve themselves in order to get out of that rut kind of goes over the head, right? They may have a 5-year-old kid. They spend the next 2 years improving themselves. By the time that kid is 10 years old, they might have a $100,000 a year job. They may have responsibility and respect and be able to take time off to go see the kid play Little League. But there's something in their head like, oh well, I would improve myself, but I have a kid. What can I do? So anyways, what they do is they then force their kids, because the kids are the future. Again, I'm not the future somehow. Kids are the future. This is one thing you'll notice, and again, this is an important thing to understand with self-improvement and the rest of it, is so many times people are trying to find excuses for why they are not responsible for their lives. And one of the big issues that we see is especially in our society, we push so much crap onto the kids, right? I can't go to college and get a degree or get the certification or do X, Y, or Z because the kids are the future. And I don't know. Maybe if you improve your life circumstance now, when your kids have kids, you can pay for the grandkids' college education. But anyways, right, there's this huge emphasis on kids. And so again, I'm talking with somebody here, he has a couple of kids, there's a lot of people in the area that have kids. And again, there's this thing with adults want kids to learn technology. And so one of the ways that I may go for a larger addressable market is instead of focusing on adults, where adults may not be willing to consume the product that I'm offering, kids... Here's the interesting thing about business work. Kids may not actually be interested in it, but the parents may force them to be interested in it, and so then you can get a crap ton of kids, right? So again, basically teaching the same stuff. Teaching people how to make an LED blink on an Arduino. Do I really care whether it's a 14-year-old or whether it's a 44-year-old at the end of the day? Not really. I mean, I think it's important for adults to learn this stuff. I think it could really help them improve with their careers and their businesses and everything else. But at the end of the day, if they're forcing, if they're not willing to come, but they do force their kids to come, well, hell, I might as well teach, Bobby or Tyrone or Susie or, Wanika or whoever else, right? And so that's one of the ways that you can kind of change your addressable market is literally simply tweaking the product and services that you're offering just a tiny bit to go after a slightly different demographic, right? So again, if I start doing long form training, sort of certificate-ish type training, then that demographic is targeting more of the professional type people, the people that understand that they actually get paid money for understanding how this technology works. And so I might be able to get a much larger area of people willing to come here. Or again, if I tweak the whole thing and go for the younger folks, the preteens and the teens, whether or not they want to be in Silicon Dojo, by golly, their parents will bring them. And so, hey, I'm teaching. Again, what do I want? Free to the end user, hands-on education. Right, that leaves me wide open to a whole bunch of different possibilities there. So these are kind of things that I'm thinking about with the addressable market, and these are the issues that I'm dealing with in the real world. Again, as I set up Silicon Dojo, it's important to understand, right? I had one person show up to Computer Vision last week. Computer Vision was actually really cool. It is really cool. You can go see the video. It's really cool. Again, Azure, you plug in URLs, it spits back JSON responses. Awesome. One person showed up. Again, Twilio. Twilio is pretty cool. Twilio is a complete pain in the ass. Oh my God, Twilio's documentation is garbage. But anyways, once you figure out how to make it working, again, Twilio is pretty cool. And Twilio, as a component of this IoT infrastructure, can be massively valuable. But if people again, don't realize that it's valuable, if people can't contextualize why what you're teaching is useful to them, and they're not willing to come and consume your product or service, again, that's one of the whole big things with ego. Like one of the big killers for entrepreneurs is ego, right? I have a good product. People should be thankful for what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, but are they? But are they? You may have the most amazing thing in the world for the greatest price point in the world with the most wonderful customer service in the world. But if the people around you, they just don't think whatever you're offering is valuable, doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? Just kind of how this kind of stuff works out. So some things to be thinking about there, some things to ponder. So like when you're thinking about your business, I think it's important, like when you think about your business, it's important to come up with kind of like marching orders. Again, free to the end user, hands-on technology education. That gives your brain something to focus on for the business that you're trying to create. So you don't go off and start doing other things, right? I'm not going to do computer repair work. Again, free to the end user, hands-on technology education, that does not involve actually doing consulting, like real consulting. That does not include building websites for people. That does not include doing computer repair work or anything else, right? It's education, right? So it gives me a bit of a tunnel. But it's not too narrow. It's like a tunnel like this. It's like, okay, free to the end user, hands-on technology education. So I have a wide latitude here on things that I can do within that genre. So what you want to do is you want to come up with marching orders for yourself that gives you some focus, so you don't go ADD and chase every damn squirrel that comes down the pike, but is also wide enough for you. It's not too focused so that if people don't actually want your product or service, that you get jammed up and you can't pivot to do something else. So those are some of those things to think about. And again, think about that with geographic area. It's interesting, like watching Lewis, again, having a computer repair shop and seeing how things have changed over the years and watching what's happening with Lewis, right? If you talk about 12 years ago, I actually looked at doing like national computer repair 12 years ago, before the recession happened and everything blew up. One of the big problems back then, though, is so many people still had desktops. You're not shipping a desktop halfway across the country. Right? To ship a desktop to me and to ship it back was going to be $100 in shipping. And then you've got to deal with the boxing. There's a whole workflow. You got to put the computer into a box. And if I fix the computer and it happens to break on the way back, it gets banged up or whatever, how am I liable for that? So if you look at 12 or 13 years ago, the idea of doing like a national computer repair business, there was some stuff with laptops and all that kind of stuff, but it was pretty difficult. It was a pretty difficult road to hoe at that time. But how things have changed, right? You have Lewis, who specializes in motherboard level repair on Macs, and now you look at a MacBook. A MacBook is 2 pounds. That's not too hard to ship cross country, right? So if Lewis says, hey, go to FedEx or UPS, use this specific box, ship it to me in this specific box. When I get it, it'll cost $20. Since it's only 2 pounds, it'll cost $20 or whatever to ship it to me. He gets it. He's able to do the troubleshooting process. He repairs it for whatever else. He ships it back for another $20. So you're talking about a high value item with a high value repair. So we're talking about multiple hundreds of dollars in order to repair this thing. We're talking about a device that's 2 or 3 pounds at this point. We're talking about a system that's very easy to implement. And all of a sudden, right, computer repair. So the addressable market for Lewis Rossman is now a national market, whereas if you go back a decade, even trying to do that business model would have been almost impossible. And so these are kinds of the things to be thinking about, is like how can you adjust your addressable market? How can you adjust whatever products or services you're offering to get that larger geographic area? Or how can you adjust the products or services that you're offering to go after a slightly different niche demographic? Again, like, it's one of the things I really think about. I mean, if I go after teenagers, I think there's a lot of money in teenagers. I can't make gold out of lead. I think I might be able to make gold out of teenagers, though. Modern alchemists. See, that's the whole thing with alchemy. The problem with alchemy is the alchemists kept starting with lead. They tried to turn lead into gold. Oh, no, no, no. What you do is you take a teenager, throw him through a meat grinder, and gold comes out the other side. I think that's how it works. Joke, right? But again, that's the whole thing. Trying to teach adults computer vision, you may try to lose your mind simply trying to get people in the room, but teaching kids, 14, again, go to a 14-year-old and say, hey, look, I'm going to teach you how to do computer vision, and within a couple of hours, you are going to be able to write code to create your own programs that are going to be able to trigger off of whatever a computer sees, right? Simply by tweaking the demographic a little bit, you can change things. And again, it's not even about the money. It's not even about the money. Again, the weird thing is, like with adults many times will not spend $200 on themselves, but they will spend $1,000 on their kids. Again, that's one of the things, like, you have to realize that with people spending money. One of the problems that I had when I created my business in Baltimore is I didn't quite realize this whole thing with the mentality of people spending money. And so again, when I created my business in Baltimore City, I decided to stay in the city. I was one of those people. I believed in the city back then. Anyways, but I was supporting the local community, hired from local community, supported local community, the whole 9 yards. But one of the big issues is that people had a different relationship with money, right? The people in Baltimore City and people in the county have a different relationship with money. A lot of people in Baltimore City, they don't have a lot of money. Again, they're disadvantaged people. They get screwed a hell of a lot of the time. So them handing over $20 or $200, it can be kind of hard to pull that money out of their hands. Where if you go to the county, Baltimore County, 5 miles away, you have people out there just throwing money around because, hey, they made money yesterday. They're pretty damn sure they're going to make money tomorrow, and they need whatever it is you're offering. Here, just take $200, right? It's a mentality about what, how people feel about spending money. And so one of the interesting things, again, when you start looking at education and the difference between parents spending money on themselves versus parents spending money on their kids, for some reason, convincing a parent to spend money on themselves so that they can do better in life to improve their child's circumstance, psychologically, that's just a bridge too far. That is a bridge too far for many people, right? They just won't. They just won't for whatever reason. On the other hand, right, but they have the money, they have the money. It's important to understand this. They have the money and they're willing to spend the money. They're just not willing to spend it on themselves. So if you simply go in, and instead of trying to sell the education to the parent, you are selling the education. Basically, you're providing the education to the kid, hopefully with the parent paying, right? All of a sudden, that person that would not have given you a dime before to train them will give you a hell of a lot of money to train their kids. Again, I talk about this with society. What I find very truly bizarre with our society is so much of our society is between kids and adults, right? If you're a kid, right? If you're under the age of 18, and I saw this, I dealt with many like social programs, and especially programs that dealt with teenagers and kids back in the day, and it was the weirdest thing, right? If you have a screwed up 17-and-a-half-year-old, right? Just whatever reason, came from a bad background, ADHD, whatever, lump a whole bunch of problems on them, but they're a decent person. They're a decent person, they just need to get knocked in the head. The politically correct version of knocked in the head a couple of times, right? But anyways, they could really be somebody significant. But they've had bad circumstances. It's so weird. It's so weird. While they're 17, there are tremendous amounts of resources for that kid, for that juvenile to try to better themselves. They turn 18 years old. That clock, you know, clicks over to 12:01 in the morning. All of a sudden, they're 18 years old in 1 minute, and so many resources, so many support services, so many things disappear. Like within minutes, these things disappear because in our society, we protect children, and adults are supposed to figure the F out. By 1 minute. Again, right, wrong, moral, ethical, I'm not getting into that around here. Conversation culture. We're gonna keep it clean on these videos. Conversation culture is real. But this is something that to really be thinking about. So that's how I'm going along. I'm tweaking. Again, my big thing here with Silicon Dojo is that this room is just too small. I had 9 people or 10 people. When I did the How to Become a YouTuber, I actually had a number of people in here, and it was a bit of a sweat box. I don't care how they felt. I thought it was a bit of a sweat box. So anyways, this room is too small to really be doing a lot with. It's been a great place to start. It's been a great place to talk with people. It's been a great place to bounce ideas around in the whole 9 yards. But this isn't quite. I'm in that problem is basically the facility that I have is too small to really grow much past this. And so basically what I'm looking at again is getting a place 2 to 3 times the size, and so I'm slowly getting into that process. But once I do have that place that's 2 to 3 times the size, that's when I can start adjusting, and then I can start doing things like, okay, let's go out and talk with the parents for homeschoolers. Hey, you're homeschooling. I know there's a lot of homeschoolers around here. Let me teach your kid programming. All right? Or again, like start doing like cybersecurity or A+ or Net+ or something like that. And let's do like 1-day programs, you know, A+ Jumpstart or something like that, and see if we can get people from the larger area. So once we get to a larger place, I'll start being able to play with things like that. So yeah, that's the thoughts here. That's the thoughts about how to grow your addressable market. Just realize, don't argue with reality. Arguing with reality will both drive you insane and make you bankrupt all at the same time. So you'll be psychotic and have no money. That's not a good way to go. A lot of people out there, come hell or high water, they have this idea, this is what Steve Jobs did. You're not Steve Jobs. And I'm gonna tell you a secret. Steve Jobs wasn't Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs has become a myth. Steve Jobs, the human, is not the Steve Jobs of the myth. So be careful with that idea of you're going to tell the people what they need. Anyways, those are some things to think about and to ponder with the whole question of increasing the size of your addressable market. And again, this is one of the reasons why it's very important to start small. Start small, you know, invest as little as possible into whatever it is that you're doing, and then only grow as you see the problems, grow as you see the ways to bring people in, grow as you get a better plan of what it is that you want to do, and as you get a better plan of what it is that the people around you want out of you. And so those would be my thoughts. Those would be my thoughts for the day. If you want me to answer one of your questions, just leave a question down in the comment section here. Again, like I say, I go through them just about every day and try to answer the questions that pop up that I think are interesting. If you would like to support Silicon Dojo, again, whether you come here or whether you're just watching the videos, donorbox.org/ETCG. There's a link down in the description. If you can click on that, throw in a couple of dollars, it really is useful. If you want to do a one-on-one meeting with me here in Asheville, if you go to silicondojo.com, on the right-hand side, there's a link for the one-on-one meetings. Again, I sit down and I talk with people about their careers, about their businesses, a whole bunch of different stuff. So if you want to do that, you can sign up for that. And of course, the Meetup. Again, if you're in the Asheville area and you want to come to the Meetup, click on the Meetup, sign up for the Meetup, and then actually come. Again, I think Meetup is the most amusing thing because you can see the difference between virtue signaling and reality. 50 people are a member of the Meetup. One person shows up. 50 people say, we are interested in technology. One person actually shows up to learn. If that is not a metaphor right there, I don't know what the hell is. So anyways, with that, I'll call it a day. I look forward to seeing you at the next video and more. I hope to see you here at the Asheville Silicon Dojo.